Emma Frost. That's the topic of today's video that people have been requesting that I talk about and give my final thoughts on her now that I've had some time to unlock, gear her up, and use her in various game modes. Without a doubt, a very strong character, being the latest Milestone unlock, but is she as good as someone like Symbiote Spider-Man who came before her? That's the question that we're going to try and answer by the end of this video. So the contents of this video is going to start with taking a look at Emma Frost currently and where I have her at, and going over her kit very briefly for those unfamiliar with her or are unaware of everything that she has to offer. Then we're going to go through the game modes, and I'm going to talk about her use and pros and cons, starting with Arena briefly, and then moving on to raids, particularly Ultima 7, and then on to Dark Dimension, which is largely going to focus on Dark Dimension 3, but without a doubt, anything I talk about, with regards to raids and DD3 can be transferred over to things like U6 and DD2 as well. I'm not going to be talking about Blitz or War, because that's kind of a given with her being a War defense character, and we kind of know where Marauders sit, and they're pretty solid, so there's not a whole lot to discuss in that regard. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, and so this is my Emma Frost here at 6765. Gear tier 13, level 75, and I have a few pieces of gear in her here. I'm a bit reluctant to go the extra way for tier 14, without a doubt. Again, she is a very strong character. I am a little bit on the fence about whether or not I want to take her all the way to tier 14. I do have a couple of pieces actually from Dark Dimension 3 from clearing that for my second round, but I am a bit conservative when it comes to using my orange gear right now, especially when we might have the possibility of Dark Dimension 4 knowledge coming in the near future, and we don't really know who's going to be used for that. So for that reason, I haven't gone the extra, and same with Zemo. My Zemo is also sitting at tier 13 because I just don't know if I want to go that extra step right now until we know more about Dark Dimension 4. But Emma Frost, great character, and I think these are kind of the T4s that you need to be looking at if you're trying to use her in a sort of a more competitive way anyways. I'm not sure if you need the ultimate, but let's go through the kit anyways here. So Fashionable Strikes, pretty good basic actually. It does damage, flips 2 positive effects if she's charged, or aka in her diamond form, that she does extra damage and she clears instead of flipping. Now flipping is better, but she does a little bit extra damage when she's in her diamond form if you use the basic. And again, for that, you don't really need the T4s in my opinion, unless you're like 7 red star Emma and you're really going all out on her. Diamond form, though, is super important, so we'll start at the top here. So if she's charged, clear charge, that just gets rid of her diamond form back into her regular form, I think. So bury yourself for 20% of this character's max health, clear all negative effects from self and all allies, and apply immunities to self and all mutant villain allies, and then apply slow to all enemies. And then if I can scroll down, I always have issues with this scrolling thing. And then gain charge. Okay, so is she already... This is a weird one. If charge, clear charge, and then she gains charge at the bottom. So she's going to go into her diamond form. I don't know what I was talking about earlier. But this is really good. If she has a lot of hit points, that's a lot of barrier. And then she's going to be cleansing everything on your team, as well as giving immunity to herself. And if you're using with Marauders, of course, mutant villains. And then apply slow to all enemies. That's really good there, too. So I would recommend getting T4s in this because it will clear all negative effects instead of clearing 3 negative effects. Now, if you're going to be using her in raids, and maybe in Dark Dimension as well, going from that 3 to all can make a huge difference when a lot of negative effects are really stacked up on you. Because there's definitely, if you include bleeds and things like that, there are times where you can actually get quite a handful of negative effects. So having this level 7 is really helpful as well. And if you're using her in War Defense, then of course it goes, the immunity will go to all mutant villain allies rather than 3. So that's pretty good there too. And so her ultimate, Turn the Tables. Again, if charged, clear charged. A lot of her text says that. So clear 3 positive effects from all enemies. Apply blind to the primary target. And then the mind control. Oops, I skipped through that again. Mind control the enemy or ally character with the most damage to attack the primary target, and a 75% chance to control a second character. This is at level 6. And controlled characters gain extra damage. If the primary target is killed, apply blind to the non-summoned enemy with the most speed bar, so you can get potentially 2 blinds out of that. And what I like about this is that it's mind controlling enemy or ally characters. So it's not like Loki's where it's only enemy targets, and same with Mystique as well, but it can use your characters as well if they happen to be the more stronger ones. This is a really good skill here too. It's unavoidable too. The reason why I don't have this is because even though you see that I have a lot of oranges, I'm very conservative in my orange spending. So I'm not too willing to go all out on her at this moment. But it'll change from 3 positive effects, I believe, to all positive effects. I feel that unlike the negative status effects, that there isn't always more than 3 positive effects necessarily that you need to clear, so I don't find it as big of a deal. The mind control, I think, is more of a war thing than anything else, so if you are using her heavily in war, definitely invest in this. If you're not considering her use in war, and you're considering other game modes, I mean, obviously good to have, but you don't need to have this. And her passive, the White Queen. So on turn, heal for self for 15% of max health. This is really good for her survivability. And of course, the coveted apply minus 10% speed to all enemies. Now this is permanent as long as she's on the field. This is a really good skill and why a lot of people are talking about Emma Frost. And so while charged, she gains 400% armor and 500% resistance as well. So when she's in her diamond form, she gets a huge amount of survivability through that as well. And then of course this war defense text on spawn, apply defense up for 2 turns to all mutant villain allies. So she has a really wide kit, really great kit actually for a character that's a milestone character, and yeah, she is really good. And so I just wanted to go over that really quickly before we start talking about her uses in the other game modes. So let's jump on over really quickly to Arena. So here we are in my arena here. It looks like I've been bumped down to 7. I have in the past been bumped down as low as 20. But if you go through the arena shard here, my arena shard anyways, all it is Black Order. And so this leads me to believe that, well, Emma Frost might be usable, and I've seen videos of her using her to beat Black Order. The question really becomes, do you need her to beat Black Order, or, you know, can you just do what everyone else is doing and, you know, just have a bunch of Black Order teams? So unfortunately, we're at a really weird space in arena rankings right now, at least in the top end, where, you know, Black Order beats Black Order, and it comes down to having the strongest Black Order, really, at this point. Now, there are hybrid teams that can beat Black Order, which I've seen, you know, including Phoenix, Colossus, Black Bolt, Emma Frost, and some other characters there. But is it... like, do you need to do that to beat them? I think Black Order is going to be dominant for some time to come, so for that reason, I don't know if I necessarily recommend Emma Frost in Arena, unless you have a good handful of characters already and you've just built up Emma Frost and you want to do something different. But does it make it easier than using Black Order to beat Black Order? Probably not, but this is really going to depend on where you're at in the game. In terms of the arena shards, you know, if you're an earlier to mid-game player, you might find a lot more value using Emma Frost than you would, say, myself or other people in the late game, where it kind of delved into just being a Black Order fest, unfortunately. So do I recommend Emma Frost for Arena? Probably not for late game players, but if you are an early to mid game player, maybe there are some values for using her there. Alright, and let's talk about raids with Emma Frost. So currently I'm sitting at Ultimate 7. Actually, I recently unlocked difficulty 1 on Ultimate 7 finally, my alliance, and we were stuck at just the original Ultimate 7 for a long time. And so who am I using in raids currently? You might have seen some of my videos about the sort of teams that I was using in U7, and I have actually given an attempt to use Emma Frost in raids. Now, normally what I use, this is usually my raid team here, and sometimes on certain boss nodes I'll substitute certain characters, usually taking Carnage out for someone like Ultron or Phoenix, depending on which boss and what I need to clear. Now, and so I have a lot of characters built up. Now, do I use Emma Frost in raids? I do sometimes, you know, it depends on what. Is it the most ideal? I don't know, you know, I'm not sure if she necessarily does something else that I can't already do with my roster. You know, I have a lot of built up characters, and so in terms of do I need to use her to get through certain nodes, I don't think so. She's definitely a good character that I use sometimes if some of my main characters bite it for one reason or another, if there's bad RNG, or, you know, one of my support characters die or something like that. She's a very solid support character. But I don't actually use her in my main raid team, but I have heard of a lot of good success with others using her in that instead, though. So, I mean, please let me know, you know, if there's people here watching this video that have used her in Ultimate 7, like difficulty 3, 4, 5, or however high it goes, and whether or not she has more value there or not. But for me, currently where I'm sitting at, like, I don't think I actually need to use her. But she is really good at cleansing debuffs, so that's really important depending on what lane you're in for Ultimate 7. I could see that being of more value, especially when you're using in combination with the symbiotes. I think that being able to cleanse, because they currently can't do that by themselves, that Emma Frost would be really good at that. Not to mention the permanent 10% speed down and clearing of the buffs, clearing positive effects and all that as well. But for me personally, I'm not using her that much in raids, but she does come in time to time when some of my other characters bite it. Now, I wanted to talk about Emma Frost in relation to Dark Dimension 3, particularly her use in the global lane, because you know there are a lot of that's basically where she's going to be. And so in order to talk about that, we need to look at all the global characters that are available for those lanes. So now you can see at the top, other than the ones that I have favorited, now this is just because I'm leveling up currently with training mats and shard farming and things like that. But my top characters down here, so without a doubt, you can't have Dark Dimension 3 Global without Phoenix. And alongside Phoenix, my top two recommendations for that lane is Phoenix and Colossus. Now, after that, of course, this is a lot of mutant gear. So normally I would recommend Mr. Sinister as a third. Now, he was actually my fourth character, I think, because I had Ultron. But for people going in now, I would probably recommend Mr. Sinister being third. Now, this causes a bit of a problem because Mr. Sinister and Emma Frost actually share the same mini unique. And whether or not you would want Mr. Sinister or Emma Frost first, personally, I would probably say Mr. Sinister. Now, that puts Emma Frost potentially in a fourth place position, and not to mention that's a lot of mutant gear for mini uniques. Now, my advice might change down the line once we get Do More Chapter 2 and 3 and all the mini uniques become farmable and things like that. Really, at that point, it'll just come down to the ballistic weave that you need for the superior unique for her to use her there. But there isn't actually that many, like top great characters outside of Phoenix and Colossus. Mr. Sinister, I don't necessarily recommend Scientist Supreme anymore, but I did bring her up. And then Ultron and Shuri, of course, are the ones recommended mostly for Dark Dimension. Now, other choices people have made, I think, include Taskmaster as well. Baron Zemo, I would love to see Baron Zemo in T14 in Global Dark Dimension, but you're not going to see me running Dark Dimension 3 again anytime soon until they add new stuff, or maybe level 80 in ISO 8s. I think Emma Frost has a good chance of being in that top 5 for Global Dark Dimension 3. It's just the only problem is of your gear, because of that ballistic weave that you need here to get her all the way up to tier 14. So yeah, this becomes a little bit of a problem, and a lot of mutant gear. She does need a lot of mini uniques. Oh, wrong side. She needs a lot of mini unique sets in order to get her through. She needs the health, damage, focus. So that's a total of 4 different sets of mini uniques, which is a lot on top of all the gear that you already need for her. So I would love to see other people using her in Dark Dimension 3 Global. I think she has a really good place in there as well, probably as your 4th or 5th character, but definitely don't go in there without Phoenix and Colossus for sure, in my opinion. Now, I think that for that reason, I think she's also valid in Dark Dimension 2, because most of the characters that I'd recommend as like sort of the top 10 characters overall in Dark Dimension 3 are more than capable of running in Dark Dimension 2. But obviously, the characters that you would want to run in DD2 include probably the symbiotes, at the very least Symbiote Spider-Man and Carnage, and then running characters like Minerva and some support characters. So normally you want to run support characters alongside symbiotes, and I think Emma Frost could qualify for that position because of Diamond Form. So she can keep the symbiotes clear of heal block and things like that by cleansing everyone on the team, and I think she makes a really good point here to be used in those sorts of situations. But she's not a main priority over some of these other characters that you would need for Dark Dimension, but I think she is a good choice for that support. And the reason why I think she's a great support character also is that she's not legendary, and so that she is a character that a lot of people are going to unlock free to play through the milestones, which is really important. The first pass, you'll probably unlock her. You might not get 4-star. I think I'll be lucky enough just to get 4-star by the end of the event, but then obviously there's the second and third passes of the event, which will come later on. So it's a good way to get shards for Emma Frost for modes like this, and most people will have her unlocked. So unlike legendaries like Shuri, Invisible Woman, other characters that you might consider for support roles, that not everyone might not be able to get as early as you would for Emma Frost, so because she's available in that way. So I think she positions herself nicely because of that. So all in all, I do want to say again that Emma Frost is a very great character with a very solid kit. But do I think that you should drop what you're doing right now to gear her up? Well, that's going to depend on where you're at in the game and the characters that you have available to you. If you're in the late game like me, then I think you'll probably have a wide enough range of characters that I don't think she necessarily makes my life significantly easier by using her. I can do everything I already do now without using her, and I don't think it's going to change my current gameplay all that much. Do I recommend gearing her up and using her in the game modes I mentioned, though? Absolutely. If you need her, then really, spend the time gearing her up and ranking her up and, getting T4s into her. I think she's going to be a great support character for the early and mid-game players. And as I alluded to earlier, because of the ease of access through the milestones currently, which are going to pass 2 more times and give people a really great opportunity to get shards for her. But, is she as revolutionary as Symbiote Spider-Man was when he came out? Personally, I don't think so. I think that he's in a class of his own and really made raids in Dark Dimensions so much easier for where you could use him and the symbiotes, and are likely to get more improved even more in the future with the additional characters coming down the line for the symbiotes tag. That's not to say that Emma Frost isn't good, but I would definitely put her behind Symbiote Spider-Man in terms of impact to the overall game. For me personally, I think she's a solid A-tier character and definitely worth investing, especially if you're lacking certain characters who would fill a similar role in your roster. And of course, this is just my opinion and how I feel about her and how much I've used her since unlocking and gearing her up. I suspect that there will be more space for her in the future as well, given that she actually wasn't given the Marauders tag specifically, and I kind of hope that maybe a future Hellfire Club tag might bring her into more prominence down the line as well. But yeah, that's my spiel about Emma Frost, and I hope that some of this was helpful for you guys, and if it was, please smash that like button down below and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. That's all from me for today, though, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. And until next time, guys, stay safe, and I'll see y'all later. Boyline signing out.